Welcome, everybody. It is, yep. Is it? Yeah, it is. Tomorrow's Friday. It's Thursday night. And this is Attack on the Politicos. It is the NGSC Sports Weekly Political Show. I'll get it out. And I'm your host, Ralph Garcia, joined by my co host, of course, down in Florida. The lady of the house. I love that sound. Lori, I love it, Lori.
I'm glad you do because I certainly do not. Well, anyway, hi Ralph, hi Coach.
Hi, Lori.
And of course, in the great state of Connecticut, it is the coach. What's going on, coach?
A lot.
I like that, coach. That was good. That was good. That was good. In the meantime, though,
there is such a thing as security that's needed anyway. So I think there's a way we can work through this.
Trade can be wonderful if you have smart people, but we have people that are stupid.
This is your victory. I know you didn't do this just to win an election. I know you didn't do it for me. You did it because you understand the enormity of the task that lies ahead.
yes, it is Attack on the Politicos, the NGSC Sports Weekly Political Show. Please remember the website. It is ngscsports.com, where you catch all of your current content. Of course, if you're a sports fan, even if you're not a sports fan, there are two words that you are very familiar with this time of year. Welcome to those who are just coming in. Again, Attack on the Politicos. You got comments, you got comebacks. You don't like what we're talking about? Listen, this is what we do here. We interact with each other, and so let us have it. Feel free to comment. Uh, this time of year is called March Madness. It is in high gear. And on the website, of course, John Doucette covers the ACC, so there are four teams in the ACC. So he gives us the ACC basketball news and notes. Four teams still in the Sweet 16. Speaking of the Sweet 16, Sammy Sportface gives us Connect and Collect. Long shots lead their team to the Sweet 16. I can speak for Dalton Connect out here in Tennessee at the University of Tennessee. Kid that comes from a junior college, D3 college. Who the hell is Dalton Connect? Oh, he's just the 2024 SEC Men's Basketball Player of the Year. That's all. What a year he had. Anyway, all that and more on NGSCsports.com, where we never stop. So, Coach said, and if Coach said it, believe it, okay? Coach said we got plenty to talk about. So, Coach is going to start. Let me get to the banners here. And on this little section right here, we're going to talk about Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's baby, one of their babies, and what it means. Coach is going to take us into that, talk to us about it. Lori and I will follow along with him there. And when we kind of clear the air there, unfortunately, we're going to talk about the Unitary executive theory. If this was made into like a short film, it would be one hell of a fucking film, folks. Yeah, a hell of a fucking film. And not of the good kind. Not of the good kind. I'm going to turn it to Coach. Before I do that, I'm going to say this. It is March. We are now third month, 11th month, 8 months away, less than 8 months away from the general election, where, of course, we will re-elect Joe Biden as president or re-elect Donald Trump as president of the United States, one or the other. We know of all the roadblocks in front of Donald Trump. Anybody who's watching this, by the way, who watches this in the beginning, I want to make sure I get this out of the way. All of you Trumpers and MAGAs and brain dead who want to tell us the Chargers are a bunch of bullshit and it's all a hoax and a witch hunt and a bunch of everybody's corrupt. Okay, two things I'm going to tell you. One, what I'm about to say is humanly impossible, but what you're saying is everybody's wrong and Donald Trump's right. That's it. It's humanly impossible, but I know that you guys believe that shit. Second thing, if it was Joe Biden, what would you say? I just dropped the mic. That's all I got on that. Coach, if Donald Trump wins, now we talk about all the bad stuff about Trump and what will stop him. How can he be stopped? But let's get away from that, because one of the things that we talked about and we know is a possibility is that Donald Trump can actually win the fucking presidency again. As crazy as it sounds, he actually can win the presidency. And the Heritage Foundation has been busy. And later on, when we talk about the Unitary executive theory, that goes way the fuck back in time. But with the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025, they've been putting together a plan. And I mean, when you look at it from their point of view, in hopes of finding that perfect GOP president, that maybe if we can get this, and remember what they say about Donald Trump, which is very obvious, all the things that Trump tried to get away with and couldn't the first time, he knows why he couldn't get away with it. He knows where he came up short. The Heritage Foundation knows where Trump came up short. And all of those support that movement will do whatever they can to make sure that those obstacles, which is part of the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025, they'll make sure they do everything they can so that those obstacles are no longer in Donald Trump's way if he takes over. Coach, I turn it over to you. Talk to us and tell us about the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025.
So right now, Project 2025 is starting to have some, tread that the mainstream media is starting to report on it, right? And it seems like it's a, out of the nowhere kind of like plan. Project 2025, it's meant for the Trump takeover back in getting the presidency. But the thing that you learn when you look into this is that this is actually an organization. The Heritage Foundation is the one that put out Project 2025. This is an organization that started back in 1973. And it was developed by one of Ford's administrators. I can't remember his name, but he's kind of the one that pushed it. So originally what the Heritage Foundation did is they came up with what they call their mandates. And there's nine mandates, which is crazy because they're missing number 8. So I don't know where number 8 went. But
what happened to it? Yeah,
I don't get it. But what happened is they tried to pitch this. Okay, let's give some framework. What they do, the Heritage Foundation, is they come up with recommendations for policy. Okay, so they have in the beginning, mandate number 1 had over 2,000 recommendations for the president to install policy inside the government. They approached Jimmy Carter with this, given that he was a preacher kind of scenario, real deep into the church, Baptist, and he didn't bite. But Reagan did. Reagan really bit into this Heritage Foundation policy plan. As a matter of fact, to the point where he actually installed about 60% of the 2,000 recommendations that were made by the Heritage Foundation. What it is, it's kind of like a, some people could say it's kind of like a tree with roots, but I kind of think of it in a way of its cancer. So their first agenda was increasing the defense budget. Okay, that was their agenda when Reagan took over, was the increased defense budget, and it worked. Ronald Reagan increased the defense budget from what was about $140 billion a year to over $300 billion a year. That was from 1981 till 84.
Mm-hmm.
So you have him, he's all in. Then, of course, he was reelected for a second term, and they continued on this process of installing different policies that were these are all obviously conservative policies. This is a conservative government. So when you're looking at the history of presidents, every single president or presidential, period has been influenced by the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation actually runs policy for the U.S. government. That's kind of what I've concluded now. So after Reagan, you had George Bush, and George Bush furthered that policy. He was, I think there was 1,200 recommendations, and he certainly furthered their policy, right? So you got those two guys. Then what happened was Clinton was elected, right? And Clinton wasn't on board with these policies, but the Congress was. So the policies that were written for Clinton's term was about how Congress can change policy and how Congress can push forward different types of agendas. And it's a whole, like, these mandates are like a book. They're like 400 pages long on how to do these things, how to accomplish legislation when you have an anti-president. So if you have a Democratic president, but you have a control of Congress that's Republican, you can still push agendas through. And go ahead. It went like this. Was there something going on, Ralph?
Yeah. We're good now. Good now. Go ahead.
All right. So under Clinton, Newt Gingrich was actually the target to move the ball forward for the Heritage Foundation and installing different policies and stuff like that. And of course, after Clinton was Bush's son, George Bush, that again, the Heritage Foundation had a plan, and they enacted the plan through George Bush. And these are the policies that George Bush pushed forward. And it had everything to do, again, with military. So you have to wonder, like, if the military budget went from about $140 billion under Reagan to like $800 billion now, there's a reason why the Heritage Foundation has pushed these agendas for policies towards defense budget. Why? Because they're heavily invested in the defense industry. There's money to be made in defense. They know this, and this is where they're at. And then what you had Obama. And see, Obama kind of fucked things up for the Heritage Foundation because he wasn't in on their policies, and he had a favorable Congress on his side. So we were able to do some, Democratic agenda type things. Then Trump came along. Okay. And this is where it gets ridiculous with Trump. The problem with Trump was that COVID happened. If COVID hadn't happened, then his time while he had Congress on his side would have been a different agenda. They would have pushed these agendas forward that they wanted. And not to step too far into it, but the idea of Project 2025 is a continuation of their agenda. So every single Republican president has moved the ball forward and installed these conservative policies inside the government. What they realized with Trump during his first term was that they couldn't get as deep as they wanted because there was obstructionists. When he wanted something done, they put in the heads of the departments that they wanted, Department of Commerce, the Education, all these different departments, had the cabinet that he wanted, all that stuff. But it was the lower level. It was the people that were meant to carry out these agendas that push back, and certainly different programs of filing lawsuits against his agenda, and the courts kind of siding with those lawsuits and saying that he can't do these things. So this is where we're at now with the Project 2025 Heritage Foundation policy. Is they've realized that they need to go deeper. They need to install loyalists even deeper than just at the heads of these departments. They need to actually have the people that will carry out the agenda in place, and they're gonna, they're the ones that are gonna basically, move the ball forward for the next administration, and so that's where we're at. Project 2025 is a real thing. It was developed regardless of Trump. This is the thing that people have to understand. Like, Donald Trump is a fucking puppet. He is a puppet. He is not the ballsy big time guy who has all these plans and his agenda. And no, he's doing exactly what this organization, the Heritage Foundation, wants him to do. Why? Because they're the ones that are supporting him. They're the ones that are funding him. They're the ones that are backing his administration, his campaign, all these things. This is where the money comes from. It was designed for any Republican president. It didn't matter who it was going to be. It was designed for any Republican president. If Nikki Haley had taken over the lead and gotten the votes to win the primaries, she would be the one that would be expected to carry out the Heritage Foundation's policies. But because it's Donald Trump, they can go and become very aggressive, because Trump is the kind of guy that's so bold in putting this out that they know that's their guy. This is their guy. He is going to do exactly what they want, regardless of backlash, regardless of everybody like being in an uproar. Donald Trump is going to fucking do whatever they want to make sure they can centralize the government underneath the president of the United States.
Yeah. Lori, you got some thoughts here or questions or something?
I didn't.
Yes, you did. You had lots of thoughts.
Yes, not yet. I'm listening.
Any questions, Lori? Any thoughts?
Oh, it's scary. That's what's my thought. I mean, we don't need to have one person controlling this country, and that's not what the founders wanted. So, yeah, it's scary. And I know the control would be the Heritage Foundation and this Project 2025, which I started reading, and I'm horrified by it, which Glenn hasn't even touched on hardly yet.
Yeah.
But he will.
No, just at the beginning, and you're reading this stuff like, holy shit! And then the coach shared a link with us, and at first when I saw it, I said, okay, it's good homework to read. For some reason, I had to scroll back up, and I saw that it was about unitary executive theory, and I had never heard of that. So it caught my attention. I said, let me go ahead and open that up and read it. And I'm going to read some of it. It is so, understand something, people. You hear from the left, from Democrats. You're not going to hear this from the right. Maybe some Republicans feel this way, but they don't say it. But the concern is moving us back. When the Dobbs decision, IVF, now birth control, this is all about control. Remember that a woman couldn't even have her own fucking credit card. She basically couldn't even have her own fucking money. And that's only 55, 60 years ago.
Not even that long.
Maybe not even that long.
1974.
1974.
Yeah.
Where a woman can turn around and finally get herself a credit card.
Right.
Are you fucking kidding me? It's like one of those things in history, like 74. You mean 1874, right? 1774? No. 1974. And the idea, remember that those who came, one day, guys, I just thought of a show. One day we need to do a show showing nothing but respect for the Native Americans. And let's talk about the settlers that came to this land and what they did to get this land and how it shaped America to what it is today. God damn it, I think that's a fucking 4-part series show by itself right there. Yeah, I like that. When you think of all these things, when you go think of, remember, there were kings, queens, monarchs, rulers. Back in the days, wherever you were, it was a dictator here, a dictator there, a dictator everywhere. It wasn't, from what I remember, there's no democracies, no real democracies. And then America came. America decided to try its hand at democracy. They talk about the Constitution, an incredible vow. But let's remember when it was written, the time that it was written in, what was going on. And this country's always been based about control. The rich want to control. The rich want all the power. For all the Republicans or Democrats, whoever you are that vote in your best interest, please mind you, these people they don't care about either one of us. That's not the plan. So I read Unitary Executive Theory that blew my mind. It said, the Unitary Executive Theory is a normative theory of United States constitutional law, which holds that the President of the United States possesses the power to control the entire federal executive branch. The doctrine is rooted in Article 2 of the United States Constitution, which vests the executive power of the United States in the president. Okay. But then you also have this part here that really gets to me, the theory itself. The vesting clause in Article 2 provides the executive power of the United States shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. Proponents of the Unitary Executive Theory argue that this language, along with the take care clause, very important, take care clause, the president shall take care of the laws be faithfully executed. It creates a unified executive department under direct control of the president. Okay, we have the president of the United States, we have the House, we have the Senate, we've got the branches of government. Okay, cool. But then this damn theory takes a fucking dark turn. An absolute dark turn. And instead of reading it, because I don't need to read it again, it basically talks about taking that power right there vested in the president. Now remember, the president doesn't have all the power. The president has to go through Congress. You have to deal with the Senate. We have our laws, which is the judiciary. This is the way our system was built. This is the way it was made. But with this unitary executive theory, those two things I just read right there, what they want to do with that is literally abolish the fucking Supreme Court, the judiciary completely, the House, the Senate, all of it, and literally take everything and put it under the power of one man, the President of the United States. One fucking guy, coach, or woman, completely in charge of everything, making all the rules. Sounds like Donald Trump's right up his fucking alley, man.
You know, I'll tell you what, it sounds like a great gig if you're president, right? So as you're saying, this is the waves to this, right? So with the unitary executive theory, the belief is that the president of the United States is the head of the executive branch, because we know we have three branches of government, which was supposed to be the balance of powers.
Right.
And the theory that they're putting forward is that the president of the United States is not accountable to the judiciary branch nor the Congress in the aspect that he gets to do whatever he wants with the executive branch in all departments that go underneath the executive branch. So right now, for example, there's a policy, and most presidents follow it, where they leave the DOJ to do their job, okay? The DOJ is kind of independent, though it comes under the executive branch. It's independent of the president of the United States. You know, the FBI, the Department of Justice, that's all unto themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Under Homeland Security as well. Under their theory, and their hoping of implementation of this theory with Donald Trump, is that the president has unilateral authority over every single facet of the executive branch, including personnel. And that leads to part of their Project 2025 agenda. So what they failed to do, we mentioned it already, is they failed to have the right people in place to carry out the president's agenda. So the theory, and you can find this, the theory is that the president is the one that people are supposed to put their faith in, put their loyalty in, and not so much in the Constitution. Because according to the Unitary executive theory, the president is the one that makes the rules, not the Constitution. And so if he wanted to make a rule that was contrary to the Constitution, for example, then Congress can't do anything about it. The judiciary can't do anything about it. And the people that work for the president of the United States are to carry out the wishes of the president of the United States, since he is the head of the executive branch.
Regardless
of Constitution. And this is the funny thing. It's like, yeah, we say regard. And the problem with the Constitution is it gets fucking bent. It gets manipulated. It gets twisted. We see it every day nowadays with Trump going through what he's doing with the absolute immunity and authority. This is why he's arguing what he's arguing, saying that the president can't function properly if he doesn't have absolute immunity, because the plan is to violate the Constitution, have this new wave of employees, because with Project 2025, it's not only just carrying out an agenda. There's 50,000 civil servants slated to be fired by the Trump administration on day one. 50,000 employees to be fired, and they will install 50,000 replacements. They are actually already taking applications.
Already recruiting. Yep.
Right. And the interesting thing, I was doing a little research earlier about it, was like, well, where does, let's face it. First of all, I mean, there's so much to this, right? So you have Project 2025, Heritage Foundation, trying to install conservative policies, get the president to be the king of America. That's the Unitary executive theory. That's all their initial plan, right? And he be a dictator from day one. Day one means he's going to fire everybody, install this new government, and they're all going to follow the new policies that the president wants, including violating the Constitution. That's why he doesn't want to be held accountable for crimes committed while he's in office, because he intends to commit more crimes than he committed before. That's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
But to give him the ultimate authority means that he can make sure that his crimes go forward, make sure that what he wants in the agenda gets accomplished, regardless of legality, regardless of question, because that's what happened when he was here before. He got roadblocked by people questioning the legality of what he wanted to accomplish. And that's what they want to wipe away. So with Project 2025, that's their agenda. It just so happens that Trump is running this time, and he's the guy that will carry this ball forward. But it gets even crazier. Like, just the last show we did, we talked about Vanguard, and we talked about BlackRock, and we talked about State Street, right? These three mega, investment organizations that, control trillions of dollars and Well, who the fuck you think funds the Heritage Foundation, right? So this whole thing is worse than we think. So we know that these three big ones are funding this conservative movement. We know that this conservative movement has pushed their agenda for the last 40 years. And that's something that we have to consider, is like, we think we're fucked by Trump. No, we've been fucked for many years now.
Many years.
By many years now with these Republican presidents pushing these fucking policies that the Heritage Foundation has come up with as suggestions for each president to create these policies. What's worse, though, is that we actually have a three-pronged problem, right? So you also have the Federalist Society, okay? If you're not familiar with the Federalist Society, okay, it's kind of like the Heritage Foundation. The Federalist Society is an organization that basically trains lawyers and judges on making conservative decisions. So when you look at the Supreme Court and you're looking at the 6 conservatives, they're all part of the Federalist Society. They've all been either they're either currently members of the Federalist Society, past members of the Federalist Society, or contributors to the Federalist Society. This is all 6 of them. So the Federalist Society, and that's one of the things that came up with Lori and I talking was who is this guy Leonard Leo, right? And the Koch brothers. These are people that are funding the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. Well, Leonard Leo is one of the executives of the Federalist Society. These are people that actually, this organization actually trains lawyers and judges to sit on the bench or to take office and prosecute different scenarios from a conservative background. So we know what McConnell has done, right? With kind of like stacking the courts. He has stacked the courts with people that are approved by the Federalist Society. Leonard Leo is in charge of the Federalist Society. He's one of the largest contributors to the Project 2025.
And it was Mitch McConnell who got all these Supreme Court justices nominated because that's who Leonard Leo, he wanted.
Yeah, Leonard Leo was one of the ones that were making this. This is the thing. Like, you kind of wonder, how do they come up with these fucking people? Like, where do they come from? You don't even hear these people. Well, guess what? Other people are paying attention, and the Federalist Society is the ones that are paying attention. They know what judge will go their way and how to appoint the judges.
Yeah, they know
different districts, different, and all the way to the Supreme Court. They have been installing these judges. This is the next step. Now they have the judges in place that they want. And it was interesting. I don't know if you saw what Roberts did, the Chief Justice Roberts. He changed the game on them a little bit, which is weird. Although he claims he was not part of the Federalist Society, he was a contributor. But he's changing the fact that you can't court shop anymore. You can't go and bring your case to your favorite judge. It's going to be a completely randomly assigned scenario, which kind of undermines a little bit of the game that they did by putting in these federal judges that are conservative judges. But with Trump, federal prosecutors are appointed by the president. Okay? So when you're thinking about the 50,000 people that they want to replace, you have to believe that federal prosecutors are part of that number. That they want to get rid of any federal prosecutor who was not part of the Federalist Society and install Federalist Society prosecutors that will work with the DOJ and basically do whatever the president wants, because that's, again, the part of it is that the president wants to control, or they want the president to control, the DOJ, Homeland Security, the FBI. All of these agencies that fall within the executive branch, they want to take control of and put loyalists inside those branches so that they have a centralized government that does nothing but the will of the president.
And if we go back to when Cheney and Bush were in, they were pushing the buttons back then already to see how far they could go with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they went pretty damn far outside
of
executive power.
That's the thing with the Heritage Foundation plans, is that it's always moving the ball forward, right? So they had an idea that if they can just influence Ronald Reagan to increase the defense budget and basically push this funding, this taxpayer money, into the defense industry, that they will get a windfall, that they will basically reap the benefits of these investments, which they have. We're almost at $1 trillion a year for the defense budget, when it was $140 billion in 1980. Now you got, this of course you got to make up the idea of inflation and what the value of $140 billion back then was compared to what $1 trillion is now, but it's not even close. It's not even close. So this has been their agenda. Why do you think, like, conspiracy wise, like these fucking people that on the right are always full of conspiracies, right? Well, what's the conspiracy here? Why did we go to war with Iraq? All right. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. We know this. Okay. Iraq invaded Kuwait when George Bush's father was the president, and we went in there and we took care of business. We got them out of Kuwait and they left. And then what was pushed? during the attack on the Twin Towers was that they had weapons of mass destruction. That was their entry to go after Iraq. There was no proof of it. There was no evidence of it. There was
Still
no
not.
there was
Still
no intelligence. There was no even intelligence behind this accusation. But what it was a moment in time that allowed the United States to invade Iraq because we had gathered such a paranoia over what the Middle East is going to do and how out of control these radical Muslim groups were. Look at what they did in New York and da 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 da. And what happened? We spent trillions of dollars on warfare.
And here's something else that happened from that. Homeland Security came about, and they pushed to take away our freedoms. And they saw that they could. They saw that they could go in and they could start spying on basic human, population.
Yeah.
So that was, to me, a part of it at that time, that we didn't even realize what rights we were giving away.
You didn't even realize you didn't give your rights away. They took them away without you even knowing about it.
So,
That's
So-
the thing about government.
So pay attention, people. Pay attention, people, because if Donald Trump wins, and all of this has to come together, like, as they say, the perfect storm. But if Trump wins and the Heritage Foundation gets their way, they, in order to do everything that Coach explains fantastically, you have to have the people in place willing to say yes. They don't know how to say no. They only say yes. That's one of the main things that stopped Donald Trump from being able to do some of the things he wanted to do, because there were people as a part of the apparatus in place that were not going to do his bidding. Now you get people that will, and the Heritage Foundation has been working on that, and they'll continue to work on that. Listen, I mean, when you look at it from their point of view, why don't I want a government that we control? We can control the entire United States of America, the economy,
The policies, the
policies,
everything about it. Yes.
everything.
Domestic issues.
If you look at it from their point of view, holy shit.
And this is a thing, like I just said, domestic issues, right? This is the other part of it. You have to realize that the Heritage Foundation is not only about policies, like public policies through legislation and stuff like that. Like, one of their agendas was when Reagan took over was to stop the DOJ from agreeing with lawsuits of the minorities that claim that they were being discriminated against, right? So the DOJ at one point was actually pursuing lawsuits on behalf of civil rights organizations. They did away with that. As soon as Reagan took over, that was one of their policies. The push has been to control society as much as it's been to control the government. The government is what they're using as a tool to control society. So the social agenda, we see this with Roe versus, the Roe versus Wade, and moving forward with what went on with Black Lives Matter and this whole uproar of social discourse and all. This is all part of the Heritage Foundation's agenda, is not only to control politics, but to control society. And that is really deep. That is really deep. And when you look historically, because you can look this up, this is no fucking lie. I mean, you can fucking look this
I was
up.
going to go there, Coach. How do you get to be an authoritative country? How do you get to be a dictatorship? You have to get the people to conform. You have to start with the discourse amongst the people, amongst your people. You got to get them to believe that the system is so broken that your way is the only way.
And how do you do that? You appeal to non-intellectuals, okay? Because we know during the 1970s, all right, there was a big push from the left. They call it the left, back in the day it was called hippies, whatever, but it was a big push to challenge governmental authority. And certainly with regards to the Vietnam War, that was a whole wave of anti-government, anti-war citizens that were voting against the establishment. And that was really something that was scary to them. The establishment had been so strongly in place for many, many years, as far as the government was something that you trusted as a citizen. You trusted the government and what they were telling you. And all of a sudden you have this whole wave of people protesting against what the government is telling you is necessary, and it's evolved from there all the way to the point where we're at now, that they know that as long as you continue to appeal to the non-intellectuals, the voters that are uninformed, misinformed, uneducated, whether they have their own biases for race or biases for whatever it might be, people that is their target audience. Okay. And this came out very clearly when it comes to, we talked about the Steele dossier with Trump and what Russia had done in terms of their assessment and creating a dossier on Trump, was that he will create this social discord in America that will distract Americans from what's going on globally. And that's what they do. They wanted this racial discord to happen under Trump. They wanted all this stuff because it kept everybody else from paying attention globally as what Russia was up to. So when you look at it completely, this is not just an American takeover. The Heritage Foundation is not just about America.
Oh, no.
It is a global entity. It is a coordination, if you will, though maybe independent coordination. Everybody's working toward the same goal, though they're not working together. They're still working to the same goal. And that's what the goal is right now, is to take control of America, streamline it into one person's ultimate decision-making, and have everybody loyal to that decision maker. And then they will push their policies through that one puppet, which is Donald Trump.
Take over the fucking world, baby. Take over the world. So this past week, on Monday, we waited as Donald Trump was facing to have to pay his bond of $464 million. As he was waiting, the appellate court comes through and says, let's see, 464. All right, make that 175 million, and we'll give you 10 more days. First thing I'm thinking is, what the fuck just happened? What the fuck just happened here? You would have thought they would have made this decision the week before this shit came down. You talk about last minute. So he gets away with that. In the meantime, let's not forget that, Fannie Willis is now trying to get the Georgia election probe case back on track. Don't know how that's going to work. And the trial for the Manhattan trial with the District Attorney Alvin Bragg has now been set for April 15th. One thing's for sure about all of this, we were talking on the shows in previous months as leading up to this calendar for Donald Trump of court cases. And one thing for sure, it has gotten in the way of his campaigning. Last time Trump had a rally was March 9th. It was weeks or so, whatever, a month or so before that. He's not getting out there. He's stuck with these cases. Joe Biden is out fundraising him by a long shot. And yet, sometimes I think, Coach Lori, how about we don't do any of the cases? Because nothing inside of me, I know we feel the same way. We don't believe, the math doesn't add up to to Donald Trump winning the presidency. Could you imagine, Coach Lori? And I'm Trump. I'm looking at the screen. You know, his heart's got to be beating because it's his whole life on the line now, whole life on the line, and all of a sudden he hears it. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, Yahoo, your mama, your daddy, the kid in the corner store, everybody projects that Joe Biden will win re-election. But imagine that moment for Donald Trump when he realizes, I'm fucked. He loses the election. He is so screwed because now there's nothing to stop justice from happening because the only card he could play in the deck is to win the presidency. And if he loses it, he's fucked. And I'm thinking, boy, that's got to be one moment. Then you got to wonder if he's going to run. Now, Coach Lori?
I cannot believe we are where we are in the country right now. I really cannot believe we are. 2020. I remember just thinking, let's get this election over with. And when Biden won, I thought, okay, we're in the clear. No, we're not in the clear. That's the whole problem. He keeps being given another shot. And there's an angle all the time for him. And he's betting on that. So I don't know, maybe he's losing his mind a little bit now because he certainly doesn't sound like himself, but I don't know. I just think he thinks he's the Teflon Don and something's going to come and save it for him.
Hey, hold on, wait, Coach. What was I going to say? Oh, man. Oh, the right keeps saying, oh, yeah, the right keeps talking about a two-tiered justice system. They're right. It's two-tiered, all right. It's two-tiered, all right, in favor of Donald Trump.
You know, and this is to give you an example, Lori, the ups and downs emotionally that you go through because you see, you know, things positive in the sense that, you know, they're finally going after Trump. They finally have these suits in place. He's been indicted, you know, so we have this emotional, you know, this is really a good thing. And then you see all the delay tactics and the favoritism that happens. You got to realize that Donald Trump is going through that same emotional roller coaster. When things don't go his way, he's losing his fucking mind. Okay? When things do go his way, it's only a temporary enjoyment. He knows that there's something else still lingering, like the potential for him to go to jail that has not gone away. And that's the idea. Like, right now, we're talking about Trump's legal status, right? So let's break it down. The most important aspect of the legal status is the Supreme Court deciding on immunity. And we talked about this, Lori, the other night. Well, you know, what do we think the Supreme Court's going to do? I think the Supreme Court is going to say, yes, he has immunity. And here's why I think that. Because they're deciding whether or not he has immunity during official acts. Okay? Official acts by the president. Are they going to be immune from criminal prosecution? And I think they can clearly see themselves saying yes to that question. Because what we're discussing here, though, is criminal acts that were outside of the purview of the presidency. The things that he did, like trying to set up fake electors and all this other nonsense that he did, these are not part of the presidency. They were in court this week in Georgia, as a matter of fact, trying to plead this case that everything he said and did had to do with the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, and he has the right to challenge and question the election results and stuff like that. And of course, this has already been decided by Chuckin back when she rejected the idea that this was freedom of speech, because no, it's not. It's not freedom of speech when you sign up to corrupt electors and have them submit fake elections, when you have people acting as if they're in official capacities where they hold no capacity, all this stuff going on. The most interesting thing, though, is that Donald Trump had a lawsuit that he challenged by civil lawsuits where the people that were affected on January 6th could sue him civilly for, damages done on January 6th, right? And he lost that. He lost that case where they basically decided that his actions were not inside the purview of the presidency, that everything he did outside of that had to do with acts that were outside of the presidency. So
this one went past me. That went past me. When did that happen?
Back in mid 2023. This you can look it up. It was the civil case where the judge decided that these civil lawsuits can go forward, and Trump never appealed it. This is the most incredible thing, is that he didn't appeal that decision. But what's going to happen, the way I see it playing out, is that if the Supreme Court says he has absolute immunity over official acts, now you have another circle back of court cases that are going to be deciding whether or not his acts were official or not. And there's the end game for the delay. That's going to pass the election, is whether or not what he was doing were official acts or considered outside of the boundaries of the president and therefore unofficial acts.
I cannot see how Fannie Willis's case would be considered an official act when he is calling up to have the election results changed, and in so many ways threatening Brad Ratzenberger. And how about the boxes of all of the stuff that he took? He took them when he was leaving. How is that an official act? I don't understand how this would fall under that.
That's actually a different case. Like that won't fall under the official act question mark. The official act question mark will be the Georgia election interference and the January 6th interference of the certification, the election certification. Those are the two ones that are in question about immunity. What he's trying to argue in Florida with the documents case is that the Presidential Records Act allows him to take which the Presidential Record Act reads.
It does not. It does not.
Right. You're supposed to turn that stuff over to the archives. And so, but going back to like today, I think it was today that Trump's lawyers were in court trying to argue that it's the freedom of speech, First Amendment, Now, if the Supreme Court doesn't go along with the idea that the president has immunity, then of course these cases go forward and we're all back into rubbing our hands waiting to see what happens. But I'm very suspicious given the amount of conspiracies that we've covered in the last few weeks. It caught my attention immediately when I saw the Supreme Court said they were taking it up and they were only going to decide one question, was does the president enjoy immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts? And I've already said that is not what we're claiming. We're not claiming that these were official acts. We're claiming that this had nothing to do with his actions as the president of the United States, that he is acting as an independent person trying to overturn an election outside the purview of his office. But I think that it's very suspicious that they worded it that way, because if they say that he's immune from criminal prosecution based on official acts, that sets up the next presidency to allow him to violate the Constitution under the concept that these are official acts.
This makes my head spin. I'm really getting really aggravated when I'm hearing all of this, because it makes sense. It makes sense what you're saying, Glenn, but it doesn't, because he lost the goddamn election. So anything that he did after losing the election, but because he's still in office, it becomes an official act. Give me a fucking break, man.
Because he's still the president. He's still the president. That's why they call it president-elect. It doesn't change hands till January 21st. He is still the president of the United States. Right. And they're going to hold on to that and say it, which, by the way, we all know. Listen, bullshit. That's a bunch of bullshit, fucking fake electors. The shit that went down January 6th and all of that. The documents case is the one slam dunk case that we have of all four. But Aileen Cannon is doing everything she can.
Well, look at that alone. Why was this assigned to her? Okay, because they claim it's random, which I think is bullshit, because it's the clerk that determines who gets these cases. And, you know, we haven't looked deeply enough into that person specifically, but this is given to the one judge that has already favored Donald Trump in all the decisions that she's made. And then they hand her this case, and she is doing exactly what everybody anticipated she would do, which is stall this case to the point where it is set in concrete that it is not going forward at all.
It's not going. It's just crazy how this shit is all coming together.
And probably part of the Federalist Society.
And then he takes Truth Social public, and it goes to a worth of like $9 billion, which is blowing all the experts' minds, because they're like, this thing is only worth a couple of $100 million, maybe.
Not even.
And maybe not even that. Well, Truth Social, like any other, it's acting what they call that. It's acting like a meme stock. Like
it is. I mean, when you look at it, right, the numbers are this. Truth Social made $3.4 million in revenue. Okay, $3.4 million in revenue. They spent over $50 million, okay, last year alone. So they're already running a company in the negative of $40+ million a year, right? We know these numbers. These are factual numbers, okay? What they've done is they've put out this, no different than anything else, whether it's sneakers or the Bible or anything else. This is what Trump does, okay? He's found a way to put his company up. People are backing it, buying stock, invested in it, whatever, right? So it came out that the group that backed him, the Digital World Group, was, I think, trading at like $65. And as soon as they went public with Trump's Truth Social DJT on the stock market, it dropped like, 10%, 20%, something like that. Here's the problem. This whole investment in this Truth Social is highly dependent on Trump being reelected to hold its value. Okay? If Trump is not reelected, there's zero value in Truth Social. Okay? So right now, those that are pumping their money into this, they have to know that no matter what, even if he's reelected, the stock is never going to be worth the amount of money they paid for it. It's a losing investment. This is not a stock that, like back in the day when I got into stocks, right? You would have a tip, hey, there's going to be an insurance company that's going to go, public, and, the stocks are going to start trading at like $15, and hopefully by the end of the week, they're trading at 60, right? So you would get in as early as you can, and you would see growth. Not with Trump Social. No. This is a fucking stock that's at its premium at the starting gate. This is a stock that is only going to lose money for its investors. And it doesn't matter to those that are invested, because they're the ones that are going to take it's a pyramid scheme. They're going to take the whole investment. Everybody that's down there that was calling in for $5 donations for Trump's campaign, they're going to buy stock in this. They're going to take their $65 and they're going to buy a one share of stock, hoping it doubles. And it's not ever going to double. But Who's going to get that money? Donald Trump and his top tier investors. It's a pyramid scheme. All right.
He can't sell any of that for 6 months, though.
It's irrelevant. The guy owns millions and millions of shares already. He's going to fucking make millions and millions.
79%.
The fucking $5 a share. He's going to make millions of dollars off of this.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But it is one of those things that is going to be, again, one of those grifter kind of things that are going to be seen for what it is, especially if he doesn't become president, that's going to become a penny stock. That's what it's going to be.
Okay, and then where's his wealth? Where is the money that if he's got it all invested in this stock or his shares, all the 79 or whatever % he owns? Yeah. So it goes down. He doesn't win the election, and then what?
And it tanks. Donald Trump's kind of a fucked up situation. And we're looking at what's going to happen here. We talk about the $175 million bond. first of all, he hasn't posted the bond yet. Okay, and he claims to have $500 million in cash. Hasn't posted that bond yet. Maybe he's waiting to the last minute. I'm sure right now he's trying to hustle somebody to give him the money towards that bond, right? But he has all his money is tied up in investment in real estate. And what's being called out, like I saw an article, he has a $14 million property that is leveraged with 8 different mortgages, totaling over $100 million in mortgages on a $14 million property. And so he can't sell these properties to pay off his bonds or anything else. There's no value in his properties as sales. And then if he did sell it, okay, capital gains tax comes in and he's going to get fucked there. He's going to end up paying all his profits towards capital gains. So where does his money come from right now? It comes from holding those businesses and taking in revenue from them as a hotel, as a business, building where they have, offices, rentals, and all that stuff. He's making money that way. That's how he makes his millions of dollars a year. He makes it off of these rentals that he's doing. But once he starts to have to liquidate his holdings to pay off this $500 million, he's not going to have it. No one's going to fucking buy his property. Who the fuck wants to buy a property at a friggin' liquidation sale that there's 8 different fucking lenders standing there waiting for their fucking money? There's no way that he can liquidate any of his fucking assets. He has to hold on to them. And that's why they argue so strongly that he can't get them back if he sells them. He can't get them back, which means he's losing his only source of income.
One thing.
Well, he uses his name. That's just like the Bible. That's a royalty because he's endorsing it.
Listen, his name is shit, and everybody knows it. Okay, the fucking redneck hillbilly cousin fuckers that actually fucking vote for him, they don't have the money that he needs to fucking support his lifestyle. They're never going to contribute enough money. They've already bled those people dry. Those people contribute hundreds of millions of dollars towards his re-election campaign, and he spent it on himself and on his lawyers.
And he has not spent a single dime of his own money, from what I have heard, on any of his lawyer fees or court fees.
He's hustling all the campaign money he's raised over the last few years.
He's running out. You're running out of money. That money's running out. So be prepared. So last but not least, the effect in America from the Dobbs decision almost 2 years ago now continues to take effect across the country. You've got horror stories that we don't even know about, because remember, all these statistics that people take, these are statistics, known statistics. What about those that we don't know? Mifepristone has been used for more than 2 decades. The FDA deemed it safe. As far as how dangerous it is, hell, Viagra is 15 times more dangerous than Mifepristone, but you don't see any politician trying to go after Viagra. You don't see any politician trying to go after in vitro fertilization. You see how quick the Republican Party was ready to walk back Alabama's decision on IVF. So, Lori, you got women across the country here. The Supreme Court heard the arguments from Mifepristone, and when you heard it, they're not biting. They're not biting.
No.
They're not making an argument. Go ahead, Lori.
No, they aren't biting, because there's a lot of reasons behind that. Because once they start, if they ban this drug, which, by the way, is the medication, that's the way most abortions are performed. They're not surgical. Most abortions are not surgical. They're drug-induced abortions. Okay, so now you've got them dictating what the pharmaceuticals can put out there, and what the FDA has power of saying whether or not it's safe for people to use. No, you're going to see this one is not going to, they're not going to win. That's my feeling. My feeling is that the justices are going to, you may have one or two of the conservatives who decide that, yeah, this is the right thing to ban it. But I do not believe that they're going to ban this drug. And here's another thing. Let's go to, this goes to Project 2025. Project 2025 wants to see these drugs banned. So it's going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's part of their agenda. That is definitely part of their agenda to ban the use of those medications. Okay. And some of the oral arguments, which were interesting, oh, cannot think of the female's name on the Supreme Court. The young one who was brought in.
Amy Barrett.
Yes, Amy Barrett. She is the one who actually came out and called out the fact that these 9 doctors, I think they're listed as 9 doctors, maybe I'm wrong on that number, who have actually brought this case. There's a dentist. At least one of them is a dentist. And she came out and she said, when exactly have you had the need to prescribe this to one of your patients? So I really don't believe they're going to win the case on this one, nor should they.
I think you're right, Lori. I think that the group that has brought this lawsuit is not going to win this lawsuit. The Supreme Court is going to have to rule against them based on standing, and that's what you're talking about, is the standing. These doctors have no standing because they cannot demonstrate any direct harm to themselves in having this. Because right now, doctors have the right to refuse to use this. They don't have to perform abortions.
Exactly.
They can choose as an individual not to perform abortions. So therefore, there's no harm that they can come out and say that this availability. What they're trying to argue is that the FDA didn't do good enough studies to prove the safetiness of this med. Now, of course, this med has been around for 20, 30 years, and I'm just guessing off the top of my head. I know it's in that range. So, but here's the thing. And here's again, this is the trickiness with the fucking Supreme Court. Okay, what they're saying is that you don't have standing to bring this lawsuit. They're not saying that some other group does not have standing to bring this lawsuit and
on other grounds,
valid lawsuit. Okay, and so instead of ruling and saying that the FDA did nothing wrong and this is a totally approved drug and therefore there's no reason to take it off the market, they're not saying any of that. What they're saying is come back with a better argument. Come back knowing that this is the construct. You have to show that somehow this law harms you, that this drug harms your industry, whatever it is. They have to come back and basically, reinvent their argument that they're going for. The thing is that the Supreme Court doesn't want to deal with this right now. They've already overturned Roe. They already know that this is potentially dangerous ground for Donald Trump's reelection. If they were to make this drug illegal, there's not a woman on the planet that wouldn't fucking lose their mind over this, okay?
Because you would think, right?
Well, think about it. Right now, Connecticut doesn't have any restrictions on abortion that are unreasonable restrictions. All these other fucking wacko states that are doing these 6-week bans and all this is already generating enough hate by the women's organizations to vote against Donald Trump. Imagine what they would do to these swing state voters, okay? Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. These voters will lose their fucking minds if they went this direction, because these are not states that are red. These are not states that have attacked abortion. These are states that have their own, rules and regulations. And as much as the Republicans push it, they're still, somewhat moderate type of states. And so they're very careful to walk this line. If Donald Trump was to be reelected, then you can probably see this being revisited and that drug being considered illegal.
And
I hope not. Well, you saw the election in Alabama, right?
Oh,
That's a great example of what's going on in reality world, not in Donald Trump's world, but in reality, what we're hoping that we say is going to happen. Like they're going to fucking start pushing people to the point where they don't even want a Republican representative anymore.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And she ran really strong on that. I saw one of her ads where there was a woman, I don't know, in her 60s or so, where she said she had the opportunity, and the young woman right in her hometown, basically, or close by, when she had a situation where she had to abort the child. And this other woman, who is a young woman of today, had to drive 10 hours in order to get an abortion for a baby that was either already dead or would have been dead when it was born.
Yep.
So she ran really strong on this. And Alabama, oh, come on.
In the
You
deep
know,
red area that Trump won.
That's a great point, Lori, with regards to Alabama, especially in such a red district that this woman won. I think that goes to show what we're missing in terms of the polls, in terms of the actual voting motivation, that kind of stuff. Because here you have a woman who's clearly a Democrat in a Trump MAGA environment that wins the state seat.
She had no business winning.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No business winning. And during these arguments, Alito and Thomas did their best.
Oh, by the way, those are the two that are opposed to. Okay, because they want that drug illegal.
They want that. Alito asked, "Is there anybody who can sue and get a judicial ruling on whether what FDA did was lawful, and maybe what they did was perfectly lawful, but shouldn't somebody be able to challenge that in court?" And when the answer came back no, Alito turned around and said, "Oh, no, wait a minute. It's like you didn't get the question. Let me ask the question again." No, you asked it clearly. You made very clearly what you were trying to do.
Right.
And the answer was no.
Right.
No. There's no, if this is so harmful, and I said it, you had to leave for a second, Coach, Viagra is 15 times more dangerous than Mifepristone. But nobody's trying to do shit about Viagra, right?
Well, it's clearly the whole idea is that sex is good, abortion is bad, women belong in the kitchen and bent over in the bedroom.
I want to blow my top on that, right?
Lori, I was thinking the same thing. It is absolutely crazy where we're at, man. This is so This is so freaking crazy. I can't wrap my mind. Sometimes, Lori, you made me think about this. Or I think about Lori. I think about you, Lori, at times like this, where I'm looking at the screen, the TV, and I'm hearing what's going on, and I'm almost like Lori, like, man, I'm ready to blow up here. This is ridiculous, man. What the fuck? Lori, final thought. Wrap it into your final thoughts.
Okay, my final thoughts are, well, I'm hoping that this goes, Supreme Court does rule against them. But my final thoughts are this. We've got an awful lot riding on this election. And I think we really need to dive deep into Project 2025. I know we went into Heritage Foundation, and I know we went into the Unitary law. Was it called?
Unitary theory.
The theory, right. But we need to really dig into 2025 because I'm telling you, we haven't scratched the surface. We haven't scratched the surface. That's my final thought. I'm scared. I'm scared. I really am.
Yeah, you should be. Coach, final thoughts?
Hopefully this will settle a little bit of your concerns, Lori. This Project 2025 is a title. It's something that's been going on for many years now, that they've been able to successfully install conservative policies within the government since Ronald Reagan. and it has happened time and time again. The only presidency where they saw no gains was during Obama, because even under Clinton they saw gains because Congress was controlled by the Republicans, and they were able to push forward their agenda through Newt Gingrich and stuff like that. So what they want to do now is now out in the open, and the thing to be concerned about is that whole takeover of personnel, getting rid of 50,000 civil servants and replacing them with loyalists. That's like the scariest thing they're doing is like trying to take over the government in that respect. But to think about it is that they've been already winning this argument. They've already been winning this movement. They've already been pushing this agenda. Now people have to wake up, and the Democrats have to turn around and create their own fucking agenda that does away with everything they've installed. We need to counteract the Heritage Foundation with our own organization that will continue to push, moderate, non-conservative, we'll say, agendas in politics, policy, and in society. If we don't find a way to mirror their attacks and deflect their whole policies into something different, then we're in trouble. If Trump loses, this doesn't go away. That's the thing. This doesn't go away because this is set up for the next Republican administration. It just so happens that Trump is running, and they're hoping that 2025 is the time they're going to do it. But if not, they're going to do it in the next Republican administration.
My final thoughts start with a fundraiser going on in New York City. I believe it's in Radio City Music Hall that the president will be there along with Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. A lot of heavyweights, a lot of big names, a lot of money is going to be raised. My thing is this. You got 6-7 good months of campaigning to do. Democrats, you better start making sure that you get these messages across loud and clear to people, because there are many people out there that are going to vote for Donald Trump just because they vote Republican. And that if he wins and things like Project 2025 and the Unitary executive theory, if the shit like that comes to life, hey, those of you that voted for it, you're fucked. You're not part of the plan. You literally are not. You are one part of the plan. That's it. Vote the man in. Once you've done that, you are of no use anymore. And you're going to find out. The Democrats have to find a way to get the messaging out there. They got to get, because remember, the economy thing is not working. Doesn't matter how good the S&P just set another record. Doesn't matter.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I do believe in the conversation with Glenn the other night that he said people are not going to be voting because of the economy. They're going to be voting for democracy. Correct, Glenn?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting new poll, is that it's shifted from the economy to democracy. And that comes after this wave of the last week or so where mainstream media started to talk about Project 2025. And now people are starting to become a little more informed and a little more concerned. And yeah, they have to push that. They have to push that.
Yeah,
the economy is strong, but you know what? Most people don't understand the economy. They understand gas prices and grocery prices. That's the economy to them. So to tell them how wonderful the stock market is, or GDP, or interest rates, none of that fucking matters to people.
None of that matters to most of us. It doesn't affect most of us. Like you said, Coach, the high prices. When you got to pay for shit, and regular average Joe and Jane got to pay for that shit. Yeah, that shit, that's what they. But yeah, the messaging. That messaging has to get out there. Thank you for joining us, folks. A quick message out there. You got these two co-hosts of mine going behind my back, having all kinds of conversations and shit. You know, they're having great talks and shit. Everybody wants to do this shit while I'm asleep. Then I wake up. I start answering, and I barely get anything. Every once in a while, a Lori or coach might answer, but I'm like, okay, guys, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm up now. What's going on? No, I got to wake up to a list of shit this long, man. Holy shit! But it's good to have it to catch up. It's good to have it to catch up. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is a tap on the Politicos. It is the NGSC Sports Weekly Political Show. I'm your host, Rob Garcia, of course, joined by the coach and Lori. We'll be back next week. I'll be back Sunday for In the Batter's Box, the NGSC Sports Weekly Baseball Show. Hope you guys like our new logos for each show. If you don't, tough shit. We love them. That's all that really matters. Until then, peace.